think I mentioned some. Okay, I think I mentioned something that we have self-closing tags and those with skits. So BR inputs, they are self-closing tags. So usually writing inputs like this is okay, but usually for someone like me, I would like to always close it like this, since the self-closing tag and this BR is self-closing too. So we have this like this, and then we can see this, we have the label, we have this guy jumping down. So I'm gonna do something here. So we have BR here too, between HTML, no, label HTML BR and input CSS. Something is wrong here. Okay, you have the radio before the text. Okay, nice. You have the radio before the text. So I'm trying to switch it now to have the text, to have the label.
Which one is radio?
You said?
Which one is radio?
Radio inputs. You know, we have different types of inputs. We have different types of inputs. We get this soon. We have type radio. Radio is this guy here. This Apple stuff I just clicked. This one where you have CSS, JavaScript, they are called type text. You have type email and the likes, which we get to see later. So I'm gonna start with this inputs label. I have a break there. Then this and this. Okay, and then input label again. Okay, so I might want to add another one to this guy. It's not compulsory to use break. You can use padding or what. I don't want to do CSS yet. What I'm doing. So yeah, but this CSS, they are too far apart. You have the inputs and this guy, you know. Just one is okay. Okay, so you can see the way they are written here. This is input, this guy too is input, this is input. This is just a normal text. But you have something here. The label says, you can see, if you look at what you have here, everything is inside the form. So, but you don't see any structure, you don't see any background or what have you for form, except you have it declared. So for the first element to have in the form, so you can imagine like this whole section like this is your form, even though you're not seeing the form. So then you have the input. So everything that you have inside this input gets to respond to form. Probably once you click the submit button. Okay, so and then I think the last one, you have input of type submit. If you look at input type submit, which is this button here, you can see type submit. It's an input but type submit, but usually it's better to just, it depends on you. You can use input type submit, or you use button, which is type submit by default too. So that's that. So what do we use label for? Label allows you to reference something, even though they might be far apart, but if you click on it, like I did here, when I clicked on this guy the other time, click on HTML, this guy was brought to focus, like was selected. So in the case of this, if I click on this CSS down here, you can see this input guy gets selected. It suddenly comes to focus, which means I can type inside of this place. And that's one thing we have with label. So I want to do something now. I'm gonna move the label for CSS, for this CSS. This CSS, I'm gonna move it from here. Let's take it from here. Let me move it to this place. Or let me put it after the submit button. So you can see the label for CSS is down here. And if I click on this run, you have it here. So this CSS, if I click on this CSS, you can see this guy is responding. So your label and your input, they don't compulsorily need to be together or be inside each other, but mostly you have them together. So basically what label does is allows you to select or bring something and another clickable element like inputs, or what's it called, text, content elements into view. So when you're doing the same thing for this radio, for this guy, the label is on this guy. If you click on this, you can see this gets selected. If I click on JavaScript, this guy comes into view. So that way you don't stress your user with coming to a particular box, or let's say, for example, you have a checkbox. Let me change one of these guys. So I'm gonna check this guy too. So check box. So we have this guy as checkbox. So what do I need to click to get this checkbox? I can click this checkbox, and I can also come to CSS here. You can see the checkbox gets selected. So one thing you have on label when you declare label is you have the for property declared on it. So what do you do with the for property you have declared on it? The for property tells you which element to reference, and when you're using for, you reference the ID of the elements. If you look at what we have here, it says label for HTML, which means it will look your code, your page, which element is of ID HTML, this guy. So that's why if you click on this guy, this one is responding, not this or any other item. So if you look at this input type checkbox, the ID is given CSS. So for you to use label, you need to declare ID on the referenced element. Are we together? Hello.
Hello.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Hello, we are together,
So
sir.
this
Okay.
is inside now.
Just trying
Inside box.
to check out. Okay, so in the
There's
case
no
of
placeholder in this field.
yes, yes, the writer of this stuff, just like we said, W3 schools, you will get to see things little by little. It's because you're already familiar or expecting placeholder. Yeah, by default you should see a placeholder, but we don't have a placeholder here. But you have something which was
Why are you not showing JavaScript inside?
yes, because you have a value attribute declared on it.
So
yeah, sure. Let me declare the placeholder. What is the difference between placeholder and value? The placeholder allows you to put some text in for your user to see, so that it gives them an idea of what they should enter there. So if I put here if I put this as full name, and if I run this, you will see that the full name is, even though I call it full name, okay, this is a checkbox, so I'm gonna change it to text. So, but you notice that I have a placeholder called full name. I have a value called CSS. It's not using the placeholder. Why? Because there is a value set on it. So basically what you are doing with the placeholder is just to show your user what kind of information you want them to put in. But in a situation whereby you have like a pre-filled information, or you have a value you want to show them without, and you don't want them to edit it or what have you, or you want them to see it as the initial value, you just need to do the value. But it's always safe to include the placeholder too, just in case your user changes what you have there. Okay, so I'm gonna do something here. If we take value out, and I run this, you can see it's showing full name. But if I click on this box, you can see the full name is not even written, it's just grayed underground there, like it's just there for you. You can't edit the full name. It's not because it's not the value, it's just a placeholder for whoever is coming here. But now imagine a situation whereby I return, okay, you can see value placeholder full name. So let's imagine I return is, you have a value, and then the placeholder is missing. You have a value placeholder is missing. You see the value is showing, and then when you take the value out, you can see nothing. The box is out. There's nothing in the box. So usually you should leave your placeholder in place. But once you have a value, it's just leave the placeholder there, because if it's editable, then it's better to just have a placeholder, so that even if they come to clearing it off to this extent, they get to see something like that tells them that this is what you're writing here. Okay, so that's for label. So I mentioned something, when you are using label, there is a for attribute on it that references the ID of the elements you are trying to call. So if you look at this guy here, this input, the ID is JavaScript. And so once they click on the ID of this input is JavaScript. So a label that is referencing JavaScript will call it. So I'm going to do something here. This guy is saying JavaScript. So I'll call the reference here, copy it, and put it on this guy. So basically we have two labels now. The first, this label, label calling JavaScript, this one calling JavaScript too. So I'll run from here. So we want to, which one is calling JavaScript? We have a label HTML calling JavaScript. So you can see me clicking this HTML is calling this guy. And if I run again to hello, are we together? So if I call this guy too, if I click on this guy too, you can see both of them can reference JavaScript. Why? Because they are labels referencing. So basically you reference them based on their ID, and that's all. Any questions? Okay, so we move on. So the next part of it, you can see we have labels. You said label tags defines a label for several elements. So you can see input, meter, progress, select, area, text area. So basically those are the three stuffs you'll probably be working with using label for input tag, any of these input tags, select, text area. Basically the rest you really have to deal with them or have to reference them from something else. So basically that's label for us. So another thing you notice is this. Okay, I will get to that on CSS. I wanted to talk about the cursor property to actually change it to something you know that I'm actually clicking. So if you look, can you see my cursor stuff now? Hello, it's on this guy and it's showing something like like a finger that wants to click on something.
Yes.
So if you look at the way it's here, and when I'm on this guy here, you can see it's showing something else, just like an arrow. So
Yes, sir.
basically, with the cursor settings, you can actually change it to actually be like this for your label, so that once you're on a label on your system or your user is on a label on the system, they get to know that okay, they can actually click this thing. So that's on label, and I'll just move on to, so you're already familiar with label. We talked about link, we talked about main. Main is the main content of the page where you want to put your main content. So what else do we have here? Last week we talked about UL and OL, or ordered list and ordered list. So basically this is just the ordered version of it. Then pictures, formatted text, all of this. Okay, basically this is, you'll probably not be dealing with this. It's just formatted text. You will write your text the way you want it to be displayed. Basically that's just that. We talked about section, select. Okay, so let me go to select. So basically what we have with select is this. It's not impossible. You want, with the input tag, your user is allowed to enter whatever they want in here. They can write whatever they want. But there are some situations you don't want them to write whatever they want. You want them to select one of like multiple options, and you don't want to give them the radio vibe. Now, in the case of radio, you can say choose one of these. You can say select. You can only select one of these guys. So instead of creating multiple lines or using multiple stuffs like this, that's where select comes. So they have a drop down, just like we have here. If I say try it yourself, you can say choose a car. So this is the form. You can see there's a label for it too, a label for select. So if I click on this guy, it brings this guy to view. But like input, whereby you have to enter something, when we were dealing with a checkbox, it selected the checkbox. But in the case of select, it brings the referenced select section into view, and then you can click on it and select which option you want. So it says select. You can see on select we have here, on select we have the name as cars and ID as cars too. Okay, I'll ask a question at this point. From our last class, I mentioned the function of the name attribute on input tag. Please, can someone remind us what I said the name attribute is primarily used for on input tag? Hello.
So that the back end, when the back end reads, I don't know. I think I was even the one that
Yeah,
asked that
yeah, sure.
question. When the back
Continue.
end wants to,
Continue, I'm with you.
can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
So you said when the like, I will just say it in my own way though.
Yeah, sure, please do.
When they tap on it and the back end wants to work on it, they'll be able to see the command you gave, because if you don't put a name tag there, it's not going to, how did you even say it? I shall understand the thing I'm saying, Sha.
Okay, okay, this is it. I'll say it again. The name attributes on select or inputs or whichever of the field tabs, input fields, we have one of them. You have select, you have inputs, you have text area, and which other one? Okay, so any one of them you are working with, if you don't put the attribute name on it, the value of that particular button, input, select, or text area will not be sent to the backend. And I think I demonstrated that in the last session, whereby we try to send we fill the form and we try submitting, and then we started seeing something like, okay, when the name is not there, the information we entered in the input field was not sent to the back. Are we together? I think you also it's there that the URL had to change. We had the URL change to something like, okay, for example, this thing is saying choose a car. So if I select this and I click on submit, you can see it says your input was received. Cars is equal to this. But in a situation, if I'm gonna click on this again, but this is not the proper was equal to show it. So if I say run this and I say choose this and I say submit, you can see it's not showing anything here. Why? Because this information, that's why the fact that I've selected something here, that select is whatever, whichever option we pick here. But on submitting this information, the value of this guy was not sent. And that's why it's not showing anything here. So if I decide to write this as name equals DH, and then I say run, and I say choose anyone, and then you submit, you can see. So your name is the identifier for the information in that field when being sent to the backend. So the backend will know that, okay, this information is coming from field DH or field whatever name you want to give it. So it allows the information being sent to the backend to be clear. And I think I mentioned something in the last class that you don't determine the name of the fields. If you are sending it to the backend, you don't determine the name of the fields. The backend person will tell you what fields and what information you should use for it. But the structure and everything, it's left to you to decide that. But the most important thing to the backend person is they want the data being sent from the front end to be in a particular order or in a particular structure. So based on that, you have to you have to allow or disallow. Based on that, you have to know which one to pick, whether this guy should use name this and name that and all of that. But you get to see that later on. Okay, so let's just move on from this. So basically, this is select. Select is us being able to, we are restricting the user to just a limited set of values to work with. So if you look at this again, I can't choose anything outside of this. But in the case of the HTML we worked with earlier on, we get to choose, we can write anything we want. I'm changing this to text. I get to write anything I want here to be sent to the backend. But in the case of select, you are telling them it must be within this range. And there's another what's it called? You can have another input, what's it called? You can have whereby you can select and you can also what's it called? You can select and you can also write. You get to see that later on as we progress. So that's that. Small is just defines the smaller text. It makes it smaller. The font size is I think around 8 pixel or 10 pixel by default. So that's for small. And then span. What is span? basically, when you check, let me just view the source of this site. If you look at this code, if you check it from your own end too, you'll see two things being used a lot. Div, you probably see SVG, yeah, sure. You see anchor tag. Then the next common stuff you see is the span. Let me look for instance of span. You can see span classes, span. You can see from my screen on this page alone, we have 1,119 reference or use cases of this tag alone. So if you write it like this, you just see, okay, you know, if you are using the span tag, it starts with this, then you don't, it might close like this, and then you can have some other text written like class and what have you. So basically, this guy was actually used 119 times on this page. So if you want to check div, if I do div, you can see I have 394 use cases for this tag. So basically, the second most commonly used tag after div is the span. And what is span? Span is just, it allows you to write text inside your document, just like div. But the only difference between span, or the major difference between span, is that it's an inline text. So which means if you have, in case of span, let's go into the example. It says a span element which is used to color a part of this. So basically what we want to do is this. I think one of the things we did in the last section was, okay, not with you. If I do something like this, if you look at this site, you can see the color of these guys are like something like blue, what have you. But when you get to the last guy here, it has a different color. And why? Because this guy is probably wrapped around. There's a container for this word, and then it was styled differently. It was styled differently. If I inspect this guy and look at it here, this is the word. This is the div class hero header, and then inside of it you have this word, you have break, you have this and all of that. Then you can now see this guy, this word that looks like, should I say orange or what have you, is inside a span, and inside the span you don't have a class on it. So the class defines the color we see with this guy, and that's why it looks different. It looks different. So if I come to this place and remove the class, you can see it's the same color with the rest. So span allows you to edit something in line. So basically you have width and then you have this. But if I change this to a div, you can see it automatically jumps to the next line. Why? Because a div is a block container. Hello, are we together? Should I make a note somewhere here? So basically a div is a block container. Block container. Why span is inline? So basically a div is a block container, which means it does not allow you to put some other things alongside with it on the same line. So it's by default tries to take the full width of the space allocated. You get to see that later. But inline means you can be with some other things, and that's why we have here. That's why we have here that when this guy was changed to div, width moved to a separate line, and this guy, because he wants to stand alone, jumps to the next line. So if I change this guy back to span, you can see it moves back to the same level with width. Are we together?
Yes, we are. We are
Okay.
together.
Okay, so we can see here, you can see the way this title block was made. Should I say the main content of this place, the head word for this page. You can see it said div. Inside div, you now have this text. After this text, there's a break introduced to it because the user doesn't want to write everything. Because if this break were to be missing here, if the break were to be missing, then you get to see, you can see that you have this, and this is still on the next line. And why is this still on the moving to the next line? Is because of the space of this guy. This is the total space of this. You can see the highlighted box. So the learning experience cannot go beyond that box. That was why it's moved to the next line and like that to the end of the stuff. So if I remove this guy too, I say delete. You can see all of them, they are just like this together. So I can put space here. You can see. So if I remove this guy here, I'm gonna inspect this and say delete elements, or I make close this, all of this. Okay, I'll just change this with 100%. So 100%, but it's still not taking. So there you have some other CSS on it. So basically that's just span is in line and div is block. It wants to take a full width of the container. You get to see why this guy is not changing. When I added the width, was it going to change the width to 100%? It should have changed, but there are other CSS at play here. So that's that. So you can see it's used in this case. If you open this, do it yourself, you can see my mother has blue eyes and my father, all the best, has dark has dark green eyes. Sorry. But what you see here is for you to make this word look different from the rest, a span was used. And on that span, you can see you have a style attribute on it declared to give it the color and the font weight. But in most cases, you see, just like the site I showed you now, they used a class, they declared a class on the elements, on the item. So they add this guy on, they add a class called Dicker Special to actually give it the effect they want. Are we together? So basically that's just what you have span for. So if I didn't be just like we had there, if I had use the div here, and then definitely if you change this to div, you must change the closing part of it to div, unless you want to see error on your stuff. So if you run this like this, you can see the div. When you say a div does not continue along that line. You can see my mother has, there is still space here, but this guy will not just stay on that line. He will jump to the next one. That's a div for you. It wants to stand alone, except the only exception you have is when you are dealing with a particular display type, that's display flex or grid, whereby you can have them behaving differently. Okay, so but basically when you use a div, it will jump whatever you have inside of it to the next line. It won't continue on that single line. So that's
but
that.
for this one didn't change. My mother has blue eyes, and he used a span to show my father has black eyes, and then it was only the blue eye that was indicated. Blue.
Yes,
The
yes.
dark green eyes was not. Why?
Okay, you can
you span and sky.
Yes, what you get to see here is this. You can see only, you notice one thing, only blue is inside the div. So like I said, the div wants to take the full width. So it won't allow anything to be on the same line with it. Are you getting? So that's why it's not, because it's trying to take the full width of the container. That's why it's not staying with this guy. It's not staying with my mother as, and that's why it's not anything that comes after it too cannot stay on the same line with it. You have
no, the color is blue. That's what I'm saying. The color is blue.
Yes,
he gave a command, sky color blue.
Yes,
and he gave the same command. He gave the same command for father. My father has the dark green olive eye. There's a command there, span style color, dark liver green.
Yes. I don't get.
You don't understand. My mother has blue. Give a command, span.
Yeah.
This that equals to color blue and everything. The color changes to blue. Like the text towards is in blue.
Yeah, sure.
Now it did the same thing for my father. My father
same thing applies.
But the dark green eyes, did it change? Because I'm seeing it like
no, let me change it to a different color. It's not the same thing. If you look at what we have here and here, this has and then the dark green, they are not of the same color. Dark green is almost close to the black, whatever. Probably that's why it's looking different. Let me change it to another color.
Yes,
I'll
sir.
change.
Probably change the color, sir. Yes, sir.
So you can see my father has.
Okay.
So basically, the color, the styling you have here affects just those contents or the content you have in that particular element. I think that was why we mentioned something like inline styling. Line styling affects just that particular section alone. So you can see my father has dark green eyes. Because you wanted to show this, you want to bring this guy out, you want to bring this, you want to put emphasis on this, you want it to stand out, and that's why they put a span around it. So they put a span around it, and then either add a class or you define in a style. Are we together? So,
Okay,
but
thank
basically
you,
what you
sir.
need to, you said?
Thank you, sir.
Okay. So basically what you get to pick from here is that when you are using a div does not, even if it's not the first thing on the line or the text you're writing, it will jump to the next line, and then it will not allow anything to stay on the same line with it. So every other thing that wants to come will be pushed to the next line.
Is a span the same thing as mark?
Span and mark, they are not the same thing. They are not the same thing, but some of these tags, they can be used interchangeably. In fact, if you ask me, like I mentioned earlier, I said a span, a div will not allow anything to stay on the same line with it. But there are certain conditions whereby you can have it behaving otherwise, and that's based on the changes you have. If you look at, oh God, I don't want to go into this, but just know it's like that. Because if I'm to go into that, that will drag us into a different whole new section about how these tags are. These tags, basically, they are defined. You have a span, you have a div, you have all of these things to make it easier for us to pick one and work with. You can, if you have you have this one as H1, you can see the H1 written as, okay, let me just do something here. This is H1. I declare style on it, and I say font size 45 pixel, right? So I'll come to this p tag too. So and say this guy is this, and look at it. Running this, you can see they are of the same what's it called? They are of the same, like of the same text height. If you look at this T here, it's like the same height with this that's basically, if you look at the P tag and the H1 tag, they are not seeming like they are the same thing. I can now add to this one font weight 700. Something is wrong. So you can see whether P tag or I can have, let me even copy the text you have here. So what am I saying? All of these tags, they are just made that way, like you call this one, and all of that to make it easier to achieve what you want to achieve. And it makes it easier for anybody that sees a particular tag to know, okay, this is what this thing is being used for, and that. But you can always change your CSS to do something else, except for some tags like inputs, image, and the likes, that they have like a fixed costume, what's it called? They are not easily transferable to something else. So I think we move on from there. So this is Mark. You can see, do not forget to, you can see like a yellow underline, what's it called, under it. It's because of the CSS you have on it. That's why it's like this. But most cases, you hardly see Mark used. You see, you look at what you have here. Instead of, in the case of this, you are trying to deal with the actual text and not just the background. So basically, that's just that. We get to see all of this, and then navigation, nav, it's nothing, there's nothing special about it. It's just for us to know that, okay, we are talking about navigation here and not just any other thing. Like that. Then we have options. So we talked about select the other time. inside select, you have option, or should I say options? So, and then you have option groups. So, which means you can actually group your options. Let me close to the right. So, if you look at what we have here, I'm going to click on this. We have select ID, then the different options. Option 1, which you can select from for this. So, basically, in select, you have options. And then the other part of it is you can also group your options, which is where this guy comes into play. Let's see, group options. So you see the way this will show. If you see, if you look at select, this is select. Inside select, you have option grouping, which is it. So this is a different group, and this is another group, which means you get to select which one you want to pick from. So if I click on this, you can see it says Swedish car. So you get to select any from this or from this. So you can see you just pick one, but you make it easier for your user to know that, okay, though you can only pick one of these things, but you have different groups. So you get to see the grouping of the items. You get to see the items being grouped. So you know that, okay, I'm actually picking for probably this, you can say it says Swedish car. So which means they are not German stores, basically. So it's just easy, what's it called, for your user. So, but mostly you work straight up with option and not the grouping. Then output, you rarely work with outputs. In fact, I don't think I've ever worked with outputs. So what else do we have? We have the script tag. That's for you to write JavaScript inside your HTML. So we open this guy. So if you look at what we have here, it's already saying document does get something, all of these changes. But you notice one thing here, this hello JavaScript is not in this guy here. It's not in any of this guy, but suddenly you just have it popping up inside some on the screen here. So if you want to know where it is, I'm going to do something here. I'll do Adewale. Okay, let me just say Adewale, then space. If I run it again, you can see it's not even showing the Adewale. Yeah, sure, because we already said document or get ID and change the contents. It's not just to do this. So if I use plus this, it says get the content of this ID, which is demo, ID of demo, then add hello JavaScript to it. That's why it's added to this. So if I say, yeah, sure. So basically that's just it. This allows you to do something that is not done here or that is not written in other codes. It's just for you to add some effects to your UI. Are we together? So that's so script is just for you to put your JavaScript in your code. You get to see some calculations. You can see doing some things inside. Most browsers will display script element with the following defaults. Yeah, display none. Yeah, sure, because you won't see the tag. So I will close the right again. So after script section, we've talked about small span and then SVG. So another tag you see a lot is SVG, and in the case of SVG, most probably you will not be the one to create an SVG. Because another field entirely is SVG. You'll start seeing some jargons in SVG, which if you are not in line with that, you might not. So mostly when you work with Figma, you get to pick stuff in form of SVG, or you have some images sent to you in SVG, and then you get to display them out. So this is SVG. So this, what you have as SVG, you can also have it as PNG and all of the like. So you get to use an image details directly. That's SVG. So you can say what you have here is, sorry, your browser does not support inline SVG. So it means if your browser does not support this, for you to display this thing, this text will be written out for the user to see. So I think when I did this the other time, source, we'll say Ctrl F SVG. You start seeing some SVG, you can see some declaration of SVG, ID of this, view of this, field of this. Then you start seeing a lot of jargons there. which you get to see later on. So SVG basically is just image. It's just image. It could be like a crafted image. Like, okay, you want to draw line, you want to draw a rectangle, you want to draw a trapezium. If you know the right, what's it called, code in SVG to use, you can draw anything you want. Okay, so that's that. And then the next part is the table. A table tag. So the table tag comes with some, should I say, siblings or guys they work together with. So here you have table, under table you have TR, you have TH, and then TD. So table is the main tag itself. That's the house for everything. And then inside table, you get to see your TR is table rule. That's like a line. And then you have TH. TH is the table, that's like the table head. That's like the header for it. Let's just click on this guy. You get to see, you can see in this case, this is table. Inside table, you have a TR, which is like a line. So TR is like a line. So this guy, like this, no, just this alone, that's like a line, that's a TR. And then inside TR, you now need to declare what you want. If you have multiple items inside TR, you want like columns inside it, that's where your TD comes in. So TD is just like saying dimension or cell. So you can see TH, it says months. So if you look at it, by default, you have TH highlighted, like bold. No, not highlighted, sorry. TH are usually made bold, but you can always change them to be something different. So okay, so sorry. TH says the header for each of the columns. You can see in this case, you have a false declaration of TR. And inside that TR, the different columns you want to have in your table, you have them defined there. And then the next, after the first TR, where you have your TH declared, you can order with just be TR, then inside them you have TD. So they are the data. So you can think of the TD as the data, and then the TR as the head or the header or the column name. Are we together? So then you can see you have this. If I copy this, so you have you have inside table, you have 1, 2, 3. You have 3 TR rather. So basically you have 1, 2, 3. So if I add another one to it, definitely we know what happens. It becomes 4. So the idea of a TH is you want your title, your column title to look different from the rest. So you might see some other styling. So this is the default, what's it called, you have for it. But if you ask me, this does not really look like what we are familiar with as table. Yeah, sure, because of some other properties on this guy which needs to be worked on to actually give that particular stuff we want. Okay, I'm gonna do something here. I'll take this guy off. So without the table border declaration we have here, you can see this is still our table. I think we are more familiar with this. Then we get to see the values like this. So it's a table. So one thing with table is this, you get to see like they don't get mixed. No matter the content of this guy of months, it doesn't get mixed into savings. And it will just, once it reaches the end part of the dimension of the box, it moves to the next line like that till it's all out or it's hidden. Are we together? So basically, table is just for you to have table, just the name. So we are not going to stress ourselves on that. So apart from that, we have other properties too. That's caption, column group. I've already mentioned. Okay, we have tiered. Tiered is different from th. Tiered is just like the head for the section. You want to make like, okay, you want to divide the table into different sections. Like you want to have, normally you see, it all depends on whoever is working. You see some people, they'll just use CH, CD, CR straight up, and then they are done. They're okay with what they have. And then you see somebody else, they want to properly group it. You want to show that, okay, this is a footer, especially when you are dealing with some of these accounting stuff, whereby you want to do total after writing the credit and debit, what have you, and then you want to show a total at the end of it, which is a bit different from the other part of the body. Then you get to deal with that. Okay, so I'm going to click on this. So you get to see this. I'll click try it yourself. So they really don't put it to use here. But basically that's what it's just more of showing that, okay, this is the footer section of it. And most cases you want to, when you're dealing with all this accounting stuff, whereby you want to show total, subtotal, all of those information, they are not of the same dimension with the other part of the details. So that's on that. So you have T body. When you see T body, you probably see T head too. So whoever is using, you can see we have T head, which is now putting all the head content. But the fact that they use this does not mean that they still don't call this TH and TH here. But in this case, you are trying to give a proper structure to it. Okay, this is T head, and then you are separating the header, the columns from the main content. And then after the main content, you can see in this case, this one is now saying footer TR some of this. Nice one. But despite this, it does not necessarily mean that they won't be of the same columns. But usually you have this when you want to do something. Okay, let me do something here. I'll add. So I'm gonna add this. So look at something like this. You can say we have 3 columns. We have month, savings, what have you. It doesn't really matter. Month, January, this, all of this. And then the last part of it, you want to write some. So you have this as span 2, and then you want to write this. So this way you're trying to show that, okay, there's something different here. It doesn't mean that if you don't use T foot or T head or T body, it won't work. It's just for you to have to when you're dealing with complex tables, and then you really want your user to know this is the head and this is the tail of what is going on here. You want to write the full structure, but it doesn't really matter. We don't really take it as something serious. Are we together? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I'm gonna close this to the end again. Then caption is just like information for you on the page. And then we have one other guy with them. Okay, you can see caption here. You get to decide where you want to show your caption. Sure? The caption is, and just like you have it, monthly savings is like the title for the page you're working on. So you see caption, the title of the page. So you can see I've moved it from the top here to the bottom, but it's still the title. And then you get to decide where you want to have the caption, whether you want it on the top, at the top, or bottom, whatever. We have some styling to do with that, but we are not doing that now. Okay, I think that's with table. So the next one, you probably don't want to stress yourself with templates. So the next one is text area. So I'm basically dealing with those tags we work more with. So text area is just like input tag, but with some differences. like the main difference between input and text area is you get to write long text and then you'll get to write it on multiple lines. Okay, I'm gonna include, okay, we have type submit here, and I will include another input. This is type text. Place order. This way. Anything. So if you look, I'll introduce a break here. I'll introduce a break here. I'll probably make it too. Yeah. Okay, so what is the difference between text area and inputs? If you look at this guy here, you can write whatever you want. You can see this extending and moving to other lines and all. But in the case of inputs, everything is on that line. It will hide whatever you are writing after that line. But in the case of this guy, you can say you want number of columns or number of rows of this one to be 3, 4, 5, depending on the size of the box you want. And that's what you usually say with sites like this. I'm gonna go to, okay. I think we have one on this. What's this then? Okay, not this. Okay, you've seen some form submit, contact us information. Okay, it's not on this page. So, but basically it gives you this text box and then you get to decide, okay, you can see on this one, it says rows 4, columns 5. So if I come to this text, what's it called? I can change the number of columns to be 42. I'll be sorry, the number of rows to be 42. You can see it gets to extend to this. And then you can write whatever you want to. If you want to put a long text, you want them to submit a message on your site, you do that with text. And then you want them to see what they're writing, you work with text area. But if it's just some short information, you work with inputs. Okay, so we're already familiar with title. The next one is title. Title, we already know what title does on the documents. We've talked about TR. TR is part of table. You can see it says defines a role in a table. So we've talked about URL. Then video, you probably won't be working much with video. You might not even have to work with video for now. So that's all for HTML reference. Any questions? Okay, I'll take that as a no. Okay.
Sir,
Yeah, I'm with you.
sir, the div, does it contain or it makes it go out?
The what?
Div.
The div, it's basically what you have with div is it takes the full width of the container. That's just it. Anything that comes after it goes to the next line. Anything before it stays on a different line. So there is nothing special, nothing else apart from that. A div takes a different line and it takes the full width of the container. So if you now have a div going beyond the container or is stretching out beyond a particular space, then you might be looking at some other properties responsible for that.
The div and the section, it appears they're just very similar. So
Div, section, p tag, they are all the same thing. In fact, main H1, they're all basically the same thing. They're all block elements. But like I said earlier, you have them named differently to actually give some sense of, so that if you are reading the code or anybody is reading the code, when they see p tag, they know that, okay, there's a paragraph, whatever being written here. When you see div, you know that, okay, you are dividing something here. You are trying to create some level division, like okay, you want to show that well, this thing is different from the other thing. And then in the case of section 2, you want to show that okay, you want to show that okay, there's this higher sense of okay division when you use section. They know that okay, when you call this thing a section, it means you mean there's a section going on here, but it doesn't really have anything special like that that makes it different from others. So that was why I said some of these tags, they are actually the same thing, but named differently to make them easier to work with, except for those cases whereby we have something like inline tags. And inline tags are the span, italics, big tag, and some other tags like that too. And then the another list and the L tags you have with them. So basically, we've gone through the references we have here, and with you guys who have to go through the remaining parts of the references or at your own pace and what have you. So I think we are good to go to the CSS reference. So CSS reference. We have a lot of things being declared under CSS reference, just like the HTML2. But we have some tags, we have some properties which we always make reference to, we always call. So I'm gonna start with I think I made a list earlier this week somewhere. I made a list. Desktop. What's this? Look from this I made. Okay. Hello, sorry, can you see my screen? VS Code.
Yes, sir, you can go.
We can. VS Code. No. Not VS Code now.
So I'm
Okay.
not seeing VS Code. I'm seeing WD.
Okay, I'm coming. Let me see if I can. Okay, I will still focus on this. I will be switching. You don't need to see it then. Just switch to this.
I need to.
Let me see. Let me just add this tab to the shared screen, so you get to see it too.
Experience now.
You said? I'm coming. I want to add. Okay. Okay, so which one are you seeing now? Hello.
CSS reference.
Sorry, can you see VS Code?
Not
No.
yet, sir.
Okay, I'm coming. Stop sharing. Share. Okay, so you can see my VS Code now.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then you can see
The
can see the
CSS
website.
reference.
Yes, CSS reference. Okay, so basically I've selected some of them out, which are like the fonts, the weights, minimum weights, height, margin, all of this information. So basically I'll start with the fonts. I'll start with the fonts. So what is fonts? Fonts basically talks about the size, the way the characters will look, and then how thick they are and all. So basically in terms of font, I'll just scroll to font section. So fonts, you can see it says a shorthand property for font style, variant, weights, line height, and line height is different. Font weights, line height, and then the font family properties. So basically what you have with font is this. It talks about the shape, the size, and the way it's written. Basically, I can tell you your handwriting is different from mine, or most probably different from mine. And then you have somebody who probably on the team here whose handwriting is closer to yours, and then we're like, okay, all sort of stuff like that. So basically that's what we have with font family. So font family, it's more about the way it's being written. So I'm gonna click on try it yourself. If you look at this, you can see this is font and this Roman times. The way this is written is a bit different from this, but if you are not careful enough, you might actually think they are the same thing. If you look at the F, the way this F in font is written is different from the way this F is written here. Are we together? If you look at what you have here, if you look at the code we have here, they are both P tags, class A and B. The only difference between the first P tag here and the second P tag is the class we have defined on them. And then what you have in the class is just the font family. So it's just trying to change the way it's written. So basically, you expect this guy and this guy to be the same thing, but they are not the same thing. Why? Because they are using different fonts. And if we go back to this site we mentioned the other time, you can see the way it's written here, the way the content we have here written is different from what you have here. So that's font family. Font family is responsible for that. And then you now have the font size. The font size talks about, you remember when I was working on the P tag and H tag the other time, I increased both of them to 45 or something. So that's font size for you. You can see this tag, even though it's a tag inside a div or class A inside a div, you have the font to be 15 pixels. So if I change it to 150 pixel, you can see this, it means this guy, this is some text. The first, this is some text, will probably be bigger than most of them. You can see this is some text. So it's now big, that's font size. So font weight is, you want it to be, font weight is you trying to achieve this thickness. So usually you see font weight in the range of 100 to 900. So mostly you see it stopping at 700. So I'm going to click run. You can see when I added font weight, the thickness of this T changed to something else. I'll take it off again. You can see this is some text. When I added 700 to it, it becomes bolder. If I put it at 100, it will be very thin, which is this. And then usually when you are dealing with font weights are measured in like 100 jumps. So you have 100, the next one will be 200. So if you look at 200, this is 200. You probably don't see any difference between 100 and 200. 300, you don't see any difference like that. But when you get to 700, you see like, oh no, something has changed. So that's font weight. Font weight is thickness. Font size is how big you want it to be. Okay, so, and then font family is the character itself, the way they are being written. So the next part of this is weight. So I want us to cover this, then we can, if we have spare time, we can check some other things on the list. So the next thing is the width. So what is the width? The width is just like, width is width. I remember back in primary secondary school, when we talk about rectangle, we say something like, okay, rectangle, we deal with rectangle, we deal with box. We said rectangle is length times breadth and box is length times breadth times height. So same thing applies to what we have here. On your dimensions, you have length and then you have height. You don't have, I'm sorry, you have breadth and then you have height. So your breadth is actually your width. So this is width. So they are doing something here to show the width. They are using border properties so that you can actually see the width of a container. I think I did something here when I was doing mine. I used inspect and then pick the elements. You can see me picking these elements. This guy, hero bearer div. You can see this is the element itself. So the width of it is from here to this point. You see the green parts. Should I say no? It's not the green, like the blue, faint blue part. So that's the horizontal length of the starting point to the end point of it. That's the width of the container. And then the height is the height. So here you don't have length, you just deal with breadth and height. Are we together? And then if you come to this guy here, you get to see it. So for this container, for this selected, let me select this container. select hero content main div. You can see the width is, like we said earlier, length times breadth times height. So the breadth, which is your width, comes before your height. So when you look at what you have here, the width, which is 1076, comes before 480.711, which is your height. So from here, from the bottom of this container to the top of it is 480. While the width of it, which means from here to the end of this guy here, around there, somewhere around there, is 1076 pixel. So this is measured in pixel. So we get what is pixel, what is not pixel. So you can see that's the section. So we have different units of measuring weights. We have auto, we have pixel. I've listed them here. We have auto, we have pixel, we have percentage, view width. You can see view height and a whole lot of them. So I'm gonna open what we have with this guy. They will actually tell us more about these stores. So its width property sets the width, and then you have another properties too, which are minimum height and minimum width, which I'll get to explain shortly. So you can see what you have here. You have auto, which defines the browser calculates the width. That's the default value. It could be anything. You are saying that, guy, you are free to take any width you want, depending on other properties available. So the element is not determining its weight when you are dealing with auto. So you are making it like a free element to free width for the element. But then you have the other properties, which is in length. When you talk about length, you are saying in pixels, centimeter, and the likes. That's length measurement. So pixel, what is pixel? Pixel is basically, if you look at your screen, if you look at your screen very well, like if you move so close to your screen, you start noticing like they're actually made of boxes, some rectangular boxes so close to each other. If you look, I don't know if you've ever tried looking at your screen, like move your eyes very close to the screen. You notice they're like actually made up of small boxes. So you can think of pixel in that format. Pixel is more of how should I put it? The way those information are packed inside those boxes. So you can think of pixel in the way those information, whatever you are, the painting and whatever of what you have on this screen are packed inside those boxes. You've seen movies like, okay, you downloaded the picture, or you made a picture. Okay, let me use a movie, for example. You downloaded the movie, you are watching it on your phone, it looks good, and then when you switch to your system, you'll be like, wow, no, this thing is not looking good. Why? Because the quality of it was made of some parts, certain packing. Like your screen size is small, and because the screen size is small, those information are easily packed into the small space you have there, and then it shows better on your phone than on your system. And then when you now bring it to your system, it will be like, this thing is not looking good. Let me just continue watching on my phone. Or you download the better quality. So when you download the better quality, you are working more with more details, like more pixel stuff, which you have spread across. And that's why in that case, you deal with more data. So basically, pixel is more about how those things are packed inside those boxes, those unseen. You are seeing them, but you probably don't notice them. But if you look very close to your system, okay, I'm not seeing it much like that on my system because Apple is nice. Okay, but if you look at all those old systems, you clearly see those boxes there. If you look very close to it. Okay, so that's with length. Which means you can use pixel, you can use centimeter. But usually you don't want to work with centimeter, you don't want to work with inches and all of those. And why? Because you want to do a screen, you don't want your screen to be dependent on somebody else. Okay, look at what we have here. The options we have centimeter, we have millimeter, inches, pixel, and then we have what's it called, points and the likes. But you don't want to work with all of these guys because you are building a page and you want somebody to view it on your phone and you want another person to view it on a system. You don't want to use centimeter. Let's, for example, you define a div to be 20 centimeter, which means nobody will be able to view it properly. It won't look good on phone. So that way you work more with pixel or you work more with percentage. And what is percentage? Percentage is basically, it defines, you can see it says defines width in percent of the containing block, which means it defines, if you say this guy, if you call this div, let me pick something here. If you look at this guy, it says width of this is 150. So this section from here to here is 150 pixel. So if you say percentage, percentage is like defining with respect to the mother container, or should I say the container of where this guy is being called. Look at this, it says div B. Where is div B? This is div B. So you are saying div B, according to the class CSS, we have it as width of 50. No, that's okay. Div C, we are looking at div C. Div C. So div C width is 50%. So I'm gonna scroll down. You can see width 50%, but this is the actual div we are making reference to. You can see from here, the starting point of it to this is almost like half of what is left untouched on the screen from here to this place. So that's 50%. So it's taking 50% of the container. So when you say percentage, you are measuring, you are giving it weight with respect to the container, and that's percentage. The next one we have is view width and view height. What is view width, view height? View height is making measurements based on your screen size. Basically, I'm going to do something here. This index, open with live server. Okay. So I'm gonna say welcome to my site. So if I come to this place, you can see we have header, main, footer. I click on main. We are not working with iframe. Welcome to my site. This guy. If I click on this, I can say, you can see the height here. This says the height is 35 view height, which means the height of this container, this guy is actually 35% from here to this end here. So if I give it a different value, if I say this is height, the same thing applies to weight. So if I say 50 view height, it means it's gonna take half of the size of the screen, half of the height of the screen. You can see, if you look at this, welcome to my site, the background is starting from here and it ends here. But it doesn't mean that it won't be scrollable. You can see it's actually scrollable, but the height of this guy is actually 50%. And then if you give it 100, so view height is measured from 0 to 100. So if it says 100, if I scroll, then you notice at some point you can scroll, it will cover the whole screen. And then if you try to scroll beyond that, you can see you start losing some part of it to the screen. So that's 100 view height. And then the other one is view width. View width is your view width. That's from this end to this place. So I'm saying the height is 100 view width, which means the length of this container, the height of this container is equal to from here to this end here. Are we together? I'll take that as a yes. Okay, so my notes. So now the next thing is, we know height, we know width. Then we have minimum width, minimum height, maximum width, maximum height. So what is minimum width? Minimum width is saying you must not be smaller than this. So if I can tell this guy, I'll just reload this page. I'll say inspect. If I say this guy, you must not be smaller than this, I can say minimum width is 230 pixel. And then I want to declare width. Width is 350 pixel. What do we see here? This guy is now, the width of this guy is now 350, because if you scroll to this guy here, you can see the width here is 350. So this section is 350. But we already declared what's now the function of minimum width, which we are saying that because you might be working with percentage, pixel, and all of other stuff, you want to use something that defines the size of what you are working with. So me saying width is this and this is this is actually, it will only make sense when you are dealing with responsiveness. Okay, I'm saying that this guy, you must not be less than 250. So usually you have something like this. I will say this should be this, and I will say width is 50%. So I'm saying width is 50%, right? So this guy, this block must be 50% of the container. So, and then I said the minimum width should be 230 pixels. So if I scroll down, you can see, even though I'm reducing this and we are dealing with lesser width, this guy at some point refused to reduce in size. Hello, are we seeing this? At this point, this guy is taking half of the width. But at certain points, you can see it stopped reducing, despite the fact that other things on the page might be reducing. This guy stopped reducing. Why? Because it stopped reducing with respect to the measurement. Like I said, these things are measured in pixels, like packing stuff you have inside it. But you notice it's at certain points, it seems like it's not reducing relative to the way other things are moving on the page. So I can have this as saying that, okay, minimum pixel is 430. And then the width is 90.
Hello,
90.
Mr. Odayo.
Yes, sir.
I'm very sorry. Another meeting will be in 4 minutes' time.
Okay, sir.
I'm sorry.
Okay, right, no problem, sir. Okay.
Yes, you have just 4 minutes to go. Sorry, I'm supposed to have informed you.
Okay, no problem, sir.
Sorry, class. Another meeting just in 4 minutes' time. Thank you.
Okay, right, sir. Okay, so basically, you will see minimum width in action here. You can see I said minimum width is 430 pixels and the width is 90%. So it's taking 90% like this, but it must not, if the 90% is now less than 430, just use the 430. You can see what we have here. You can see it's taking 90% of this. If you measure from here to here, you just see this is 9/10 of this. So if I reduce this guy to a certain extent, it's not going below this, but you can see this is 430, but it's no longer 90%. That's from here to here. It's no more 90% of the distance from here to here. So the reverse is the case you have with maximum width. So maximum width is saying it should not be greater than that. I think then the next what's it called we have is margin and padding. Margin and padding is basically how much space you want inside the elements. That's padding, and then margin is give me space. So for this guy, I'm gonna put margin here. Where I say margin 23, or let me say 25 pixel. So you can see it gets moved by 25% left, top, left, and right. Because if you look at it, here, you can see this guy moves, and then you can see the margin is between 25, 25, 25, 25. That's margin outer space. This is your element. You can see this is the element, but it has space of 25 all around it. But why padding is internal space. You've heard of something like shoulder pad or whatever. It's just like all these Christmas and all this baby stuff where they put the actual or masquerade, whereby the actual content is small, but you have a big container. So 24 pixel. So in the case of this, look at the way it's measured. You can see when I use padding, this welcome didn't start from the top again, didn't start where it started initially. It had to jump a bit inside. That's padding, internal space. Okay, so I think what we can do for ourselves is just to continue with go through the properties we have on this. So please let's do something so that I don't want us to go over this again next class, so we can move straight up to building a proper page. So please just read up with the CSS references we have here. We have so many of them there. Just read as much as you can. But these are the basic ones I would like you guys to focus on. So I'm gonna drop it in the should I drop it on the group? Yeah, sure. I'll drop it on the group now, so you can always check them and what's it called? Breathe through them as priority against the next class, and then you can try things out. If you tell me you can't tell me that you'll be able to finish everything. Like, even if you finish everything, just try to practice and do some things around it, and then in the next class we move straight up. So I don't start saying border color, border radius, and all of that, and then you start asking me, what are we doing again here? I think this will be the end of our session. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Bye.
Oluwaseun Akinwumi.